Happy Wednesday, everybody. It is May the 14th. I am Jeff Bidwell. Welcome into Morning in the Valley. Coming up here in about 10 minutes, we're going to talk with Southern Illinois men's basketball coach Scott Nagy as Coach Nagy gets ready for year number 2 with the Salukis in Carbondale. Time now for some headlines of the morning. And not often we talk about the College of Charleston on here, but this morning we are going to, as this is an important ruling from a U.S. district judge that will have an impact, certainly on at least some parts of the Missouri Valley Conference, but really is in college basketball as a whole. As a U.S. district judge has rejected a request by that young man right there named Ante Berzovich, played for the College of Charleston for the last 3 years. The quick rundown on Berzovich is he played 2 years at Southeastern Oklahoma State. That's a Division II school. One of those years was a COVID year from Croatia. Basically the first year, which was the COVID year and got thrown out anyway, but he redshirted, just trying to learn the language, learn the culture, just get acclimated. Played then 1 season at Southeastern Oklahoma State and then transferred to the College of Charleston, where he played the last 3 years. So even when you throw the year out, the COVID year, he's played 4 years. And that in normal times would mean an end to eligibility. As we've seen, the Vanderbilt quarterback who had played a year or two at the NAIA level had sued and got a waiver, a sort of a blanket waiver for everybody, that if their eligibility ran out during the 2024-25 school year, but they had played in the NAIA level, they would then get a year back. So, hey, let's try this for kids that played at Division II. The U.S. district judge, well, firstly, Berzovich filed a waiver with the NCAA. They said no. So Berzovich goes to court, and the U.S. district judge rejected the lawsuit, saying that the lawsuit did not meet, quote, the exceptionally high standard that is required for a temporary restraining order or a mandatory preliminary injunction. I have watched Law and Order. That is the extent of my legal background. But the bottom line is, when it comes to Berzovich's argument, he is saying that by going to Division II, he did not have an opportunity, boiled down, he did not have an opportunity to cash in on name, image, and likeness playing at the Division II level. In the 23-24 season, he says he made $75,000 in NIL at the College of Charleston. This past season, he says he made $300,000 in NIL. And then once he got into the portal after the season, which is what all these Division II guys that had played in the past did, because while they were waiting for the courts to rule, that was kind of the only play. They wanted to be in the portal, so in case they wanted to come back to their school, but hey, maybe the school's out of scholarships, they at least had options to go elsewhere. Murray State's A.J. Ferguson, one of those. We're going to talk about him in just a minute. But Berzovich said when he went into the portal, he was offered anywhere from $1.5 to $2 million to play this upcoming season. If there is any question as to why guys are trying to hang around college on top of just being at college for another year and escaping the real world for one more year, $1.5 to $2 million are a whole lot of reasons why that would be important. Berzovich says the money is important. It's not the only reason. You can do all the math on that you choose to do. Now, the NCAA's counter argument to that was, look, you played 2 years at Division II, and that sets you up for success that you were able to then have at the Division I level. The bottom line is right now is that there were some lawsuits on the front lines, sort of the canary in the old coal mine, that were trying to find a way to get themselves eligible, but then you get a judge that just goes, you know what, anybody that did it, you can have it as well. And that's been sort of the MO here. It feels like the last couple of years is if you go fight the NCAA in court, you're going to win. It's just whether it's been the NIL, whether it's been transfer and play right away, getting a 5th year, 6th year, 7th year, whatever, kids just have not been turned down seemingly. And this is really the first time that a judge was like, no, you've had your chance, and that's all you're going to get at this point. So when you have an AJ Ferguson who played one season at East Central University, a Division II school, then of course went to Southern Illinois for 2 years and then played at Murray State for this past year, he is by definition out of eligibility. He got into the portal right before it closed and an adjust in case manner. He wants to play another year of college basketball. Now, when I talked to him, 3-4 weeks ago, it was a matter of, I want to play college basketball, but I want to play at Murray State. And that's it. I'm in the portal just in case something comes down the pike and we get some clearance, and then that's awesome. And then I hope to go back to Murray. If they don't have room, then I have options to go elsewhere. But he was also very clear on, I'm not suing anyone. I'm not going through the trouble and the expense and all of that of trying to get eligibility. He's like, I'm going to let everybody else go take the bullets and see what happens. And in this case, Ante Berzovic being turned down by this district judge appears, at least for now, that AJ Ferguson is officially out of eligibility. Jonathan Pierre was another guy down at Belmont who had played 2 years at Nova Southeastern Division II school. He's going through the draft process right now anyway, but there were plenty of guys out there who spent some time at Division II that thought maybe this is a little bit of a Hail Mary request, that maybe they get a chance to be able to get an extra year. And look, not everybody's going to get $1.5 or $2 million in the portal. And again, everybody, guys want to go back to college for different reasons. And again, if it's just kicking adulthood down the road for one more year, as a 50-year-old man, yeah, I would have loved another year in college just because, and to get to play basketball and all of that. But right now, it appears that the run is over for the former Saluki and the former racer AJ Ferguson. All right, some other news and notes and some headlines from the last couple of days as we wait on Southern Illinois head coach Scott Nagy to be with us. He said he'll be with us here in just 2-3 minutes, scheduled to come on about 9:10. Some more player acquisition news. And the Drake Bulldogs have added Eric Henderson. As we talked to him a couple days ago, he has signed Aku Federico, the young man from Finland who went to South Carolina last year, was a mid-year transfer. Did not play, redshirted. Like I said, got there midway through the year, just sort of a developmental time with him. But he went into the portal and has now landed with the Drake Bulldogs. Drake now with 11 on their roster, so still some work to do, to get to that 15. If that is ultimately going to be the number. We still do not have official confirmation on the House settlement, which we believe is coming, but the judges and the lawyers and everybody are still doing some massaging on that. But even in the old days of 13 scholarships, Drake still has some work left here in the last 2-3 weeks before everybody reports for summer workouts. At Indiana State, Matthew Graves, we told you about this commitment. It is now a signing as Truman State, Division II, Truman State standout Xavier Hall has signed with the Sycamores. One of the best point guards in Division II last year, as Hall averaged close to 15 points a game, almost 6 assists a game, those 5.8 assists, 13th best in Division II last year, and a heck of a shooter, 48.5% from the field, 42.5% from the three-point line, and 86% from the stripe. So looks to be a very good pickup there for Matthew Graves at Indiana State. Evansville, Coach Robin Scher. She has gone overseas and she has gotten a trio of big kids, and they have come from far and wide. As Helena Savic, 5'11" forward out of Melbourne, Australia. That was the first signing that they announced here in the last couple of days. Then you have Georgia Cox, a 6'4" forward from, I believe it's Ballarat, Australia. And then Coach Scher going to Spain as well and getting a 6'1" forward, Maria Mustaros. So 5'11", 6'1", 6'4". We've talked about the challenge in getting bigs and with NIL, especially in the women's game, that it's like you see coaches going overseas and being able to bring kids in, and certainly at Evansville, they have done just that. All right, looks like our guest of honor has joined us as he has just completed his 30th year as a head coach, getting ready for year number 2 in Carbondale as the head coach of the Southern Illinois Salukis. Let's welcome in Scott Nagy this morning. Coach, how are you?
Good. You guys are in trouble if I'm your guest of honor.
Well, we are glad you are with us today. Just finished year number 30. If we go back 30 years ago, is Scott Nagy surprised he's still coaching 30 years later, or is there a youthful arrogance of course I'm still coaching 30 years later?
Well, God's certainly given me a lot of grace in my career, but I remember when I took the job at South Dakota State when I was 28, I thought, and I told my wife this, if I screw this up, where do I go from here? You're already a head coach and at 28, and if I screw it up, it's kind of it. And fortunately we didn't. We had some good years, and I'm just thankful to still be doing it for sure, because it's a lot of guys haven't been able to do it this long, and so I'm pretty grateful.
The beard's gone. What happened? Just get warming up, springtime?
Oh, my wife gets tired of it.
That's always the case.
Yeah, I know. And she says it makes me look a lot older. So I try to keep people off balance.
Fair enough. Boy, the season ends and there's no break. You got to try to get your roster ready to roll for next season. If I think my math is right this morning, you've got 12 on the board for next year. How much more work needs to be done to get your roster ready for 25-26?
We're close. I don't even know who's announced and who hasn't. You say 12.
That was on your roster page.
I know. And so I don't even pay attention to that stuff, but we actually do have 13. I think we're waiting on one thing just to announce, and we're waiting on one more young man, and I think we're close to being done. I think, this is a lot different time than it used to be. We used to be able to relax during this period of time, and you sign your people early if you can, and you didn't lose all the roster pieces that's happening now to people, and so. This is just a lot different period for sure, and I think coaches are frustrated by it, but we're all kind of going through the same thing.
I was listening to an interview with UNLV's Josh Pastner yesterday, who's been out of the game as a head coach for a couple years, and now he's back. And he was asked about sort of the changes, and he said he actually appreciates, for all the challenges right now, he actually appreciates the efficiency in recruiting now, because now it's sort of a 3-week sprint at the end of a season instead of investing 3 years in kids and then just hoping everything breaks right at the end. For somebody that's been around as long as you have, can you appreciate that sentiment, or is the speed dating just not really the way to be?
I don't like it. I would prefer the other, with relationships and mostly. I know that a lot of these young men are getting paid now. And so in their minds, they think that things are better. I'm not convinced of that. I think there are a lot of things that they miss out on by bouncing around. And, we're doing the best we can to give them some of those things in a shorter period of time. But I just think so many of them are missing out on establishing roots and having a home to go back to when it's all said and done. I think so many of them, because they're so young, think they're going to play forever, and they're not. I look up, I walk through our Cook Club and see all these All-Americans up there, and I feel like that's never going to happen again because they just bounce around. It's like records are never going to be broken again because people aren't there long enough to break them.
Right.
There's just, there are, and I say this to kids all the time. It's great to have money to buy things, but not and really not until you have the things that money can't buy. And so that's what we're trying to give them. And it's more difficult to do that because they're just not with us long enough. And I want to be able to develop relationships and them grow some roots. And
Sure.
this isn't happening anymore.
What has been the biggest challenge for you after spending decades of this is the way we do the job, and then it feels like kind of overnight everything is shifted underneath your feet, of just trying to evolve and keep up with everything that's new?
Yeah, I mean it's not just this, but it's probably always been that way for as long as I've coached. I mean, I'm a lot different coach, even in the way I communicate and deal with young men than I was when I was younger. Over 30 years, culture changes, and you have to change with it, or you're just not going to survive. The things and how my dad coached, we were just talking about this yesterday, wouldn't fly today. And and so you do have to adapt, and there are things that I wouldn't have allowed to go on 30 years ago that I don't even blink at now. And so you make those adjustments, and I think this is part of it. Whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. Now you don't want to change your standards, your high standards, and your values, but you can adjust, and you just don't have to be so rigid. I think people that are rigid don't last very long.
I promise this entire interview is not about the portal. I have one last question about it, just in terms of your philosophy. When I know when kids come in and say, I want to get into the portal, a lot of times it's not a surprise. But when you have those conversations, have you ever been able to convince a guy that's like, man, I think I want to go? Have you ever been able to convince him to stay? Or is it even a matter of, if you're half out, then I don't need you in?
Well, and again, I think this comes with the change. Initially, when all this started happening, if somebody said that, I'd be like, I'm done with you.
Yeah.
I want people that are 2 feet in, and so over this 4 or 5 year period that this has all started to happen, I've kind of changed, trying to view it from the young man standpoint. The people, knowing the people around them, knowing what's going on. I've even changed how I've looked at that. And depending on who it is, sometimes it might be somebody that says they want to get in it, and I would be, fine, we're done. And
Yeah.
there's other people, that I trust and have a relationship with, a better one that are actually seeking advice and trying to figure things out. And even if they got in and wanted to come back, I would be good with it, because I sense that they want that relationship. And so again, if I just going to be rigid and just say you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, if you say that, uh, it would make things more difficult. And so I get now, with the amount of money being thrown around, and I try to think about, if I was in college and this happened, instead of just looking at it, from my viewpoint, trying to look at it from their viewpoint. So some of it makes sense to me.
I was reading an article about you last night, and a man of faith that you are, and you were talking about, when in recruiting, that you want to emphasize prioritizing character, discipline, and accountability over winning. We know this business is ultimately all about the scoreboard for the players, certainly for your livelihood. Uh, how have you over the years been able to balance that, to sort of answer to both of those masters and satisfy both sides of that?
Well, I know over a 30-year career in being a head coach, and I've looked back on when I've prioritized winning over the other, and what it's produced is anxiety and less winning. And when I've focused on the things that I know are important, and spend less time worrying and less time worrying about myself, I tend to be a better coach, and we win more. And so, and it's not easy. You can always get caught up in, oh, we have to win, we have to win. But that's whenever you start feeling like that, I tend to get uptight. It makes everybody else uptight. And so, if I can make sure that my relationship is right with God, and I'm seeking that first, then I'll seek the other good things for the players, and it produces winning. It just does. Now you got to have good players. It's not like if you do everything the way you're supposed to, you win, because you still have to have good players. I mean, all that stuff ties together, but I just know I'm a lot better coach when my focus is on the right things, and we win more because I'm more relaxed and I'm not just caught up in the result. And I heard somebody say this yesterday, that sometimes games get in the way of really what you're trying to do, because in practice is where you can develop those kind of things that we're talking about, and then you get to the games, and then it's just like we have to win, and sometimes it goes against everything you're trying to teach. And so, somebody asked me, do you like practice or the games better? And I definitely like practice better. Um, and I always have. Sometimes I dread the games, and I wish that I didn't, because that's why we're doing it. The players want to play it. But the games can get us all caught up in the result versus, still trying to help these guys develop.
Come out of Delta State, Dad says, Scott, I want you to get a management degree and not coach. And obviously that fell on deaf ears. So why did you decide to go down the coaching path?
Well, honestly, I think it's just all I knew. I don't think I didn't come out of thinking, oh, I want to coach, probably because I knew my dad didn't want me to. And so I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it. Obviously, I had a good opportunity to go get my master's at the University of Illinois. And so that got me started in the coaching. And, you go to a Final Four, you go to an NCAA tournament, and they're like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I, even in my second year of being a GA, I still was a little unsure of what I wanted to do. And, then getting my first job all the way out of South Dakota State, which I knew nothing about, was scary for me. And I remember I was 24 years old. I'm assistant coach. I remember my dad driving me up to Brookings, South Dakota, and helping me move some stuff. And next day, see you later. And I'm like, how do I do this job, Dad? I didn't even know how to do it, really. But it's like I tell my players all the time. I tell my kids, FIO, figure it out. People can't do everything for you, and that's what I had to do, and that was good for me. And I was under Jim Thorson was a very good. He was very technical, and I learned how to run a practice, those kind of things. He was, and I was fortunate enough to be under some coaches that had different strengths, and so I had to fill in their gaps, and it kind of helped me develop as a coach. But I was unsure even then, and it's a tough business, but man, God has been great to me in this business for sure.
Your dad, Dick, was a basketball lifer. Growing up in that house, what was maybe the one lesson you took from coach away from the court, coach bringing it home, that you've been able to apply to the rest of your life and your family?
Well, I can, of course, he was a junior college head coach, and they don't have the life of a Division I coach.
Sure.
And he would come home late at night after being on the road and a loss, and he would just stay up late and sit, and it's hard. Like, it's hard to go to sleep. It's hard, particularly when you lose. It really messes with how you feel about yourself and how you think other people feel about you. And in reality, people aren't thinking about you, but we all think about ourselves and think everybody thinks we're terrible when we don't win. And so I watched him go through that, and I go through it as well. I think he probably didn't have, at that point in his life, he didn't have his relationship with God like I do. And so, I have different ways to cope with it than he did. But it still doesn't make it easy.
1989, you get to go to the Final Four as that grad assistant with that Illinois team. That's sort of my wheelhouse of teenage. I mean, those names of Nick Anderson and Kenny Battle and Kendall Gill, and it's like, man, that was the peak probably of my teenage fandom. Do you have a best story from that Final Four trip, being so young in the game and getting a chance to go out there to the Kingdom?
Yeah, all that happened so fast. I remember the whole stretch of the NCAA. Really, that season was a tremendous one, and big moments in it. Obviously, when Nick Anderson hit that shot at Indiana from about 35 feet, just turned and hit a jumper, was just a huge moment for the whole team there. And right before the NCAA was ready to announce where everybody was going, and everybody thought Indiana would be a 1 seed and we'd be a 2 seed, and we ended up getting the 1 seed because we won that game. But I do remember just of that stretch run in the NCAA. I remember we played in Indianapolis, and we played McNeese State, and I can't remember who Ball State played, but Ball State had a tremendous team. Dick Hunsaker was the coach, and they had some good players, and they had beaten a bunch of Big Ten teams that year, like 2 or 3. I think they beat Purdue. I mean, they had a good team, and we practiced, and then they were coming in right after us, and I remember they were wearing T-shirts that said Big Ten champs on, and of course our players saw that, and weren't very happy about it, and I don't think of any game we ever played that year that our players were more fired up to play. And we started that game out, I think it was 14-2 before they could even call a timeout. I mean, we threw a lob to Kendall Gill, he dunks it behind his head. I mean, the guys were just sky high, and they played us tough, but I can remember that vividly, just how fired up our players were over those T-shirts.
Got to be careful about poking the bear sometimes.
Yeah.
Last season, your first year in Carbondale, and Elijah Elliott tears his ACL early, and I can't even imagine what a wrecking ball that was to sort of the plans of the season and having to readjust on the fly for you. Start conference 0-5, limp down the stretch. But there was that chunk in the middle where it was like you guys win 7 of 9. And you're like, okay, they have started to figure some stuff out here. What from that month stretch can you sort of look back at and go, what flipped to get it to work? And then what can you sort of build on as you guys go into this coming season?
Well, like you said, I thought it did flip, and then we did not finish the season well, and that was a very frustrating thing because normally our teams the second half of the conference season really finished well, and we didn't. But I do think. Just the lack of having a real point guard was hard for our team. We weren't really able to run motion the way I'm used to running it. Our players, I just had a brand new staff, all brand new players. And so it just, there was so much more teaching that needed to be done on both sides, because I had to teach the coaches and they're supposed to teach the players. And so, but a lot of people forget losing Elijah there 5 games in the season. He was our leading scorer. He was really the only guy for us that could play point. I don't think he's a natural point. He's got scoring on his mind, and he's good at it. And but losing, a guy that could really handle it. And I think what most people don't understand is probably the biggest loss in losing him was his defense. He was hard to ball screen. He was strong. And so losing him was hard for us, making Kennard the point guard when he's really a small forward. We just tried to piece that thing together as best we could. But we just have to get better defensively. I've never been concerned about offense. I really never have been. I think most people consider me an offensive minded guy just because I'm pretty free with our players offensively. We play fast. We score a lot of points. I'm more concerned about, whether or not we can get people stopped. And I think a lot of people think you just have to play slow in order to be a good defensive team. And I'm just not convinced of that. And I think Florida proved that this year.
I'm going to talk about offense, even though you want defense to improve. Last year, the second fastest tempo, our friends at KenPom, second fastest tempo team at SIU since 2002, well above average offensive efficiency. And again, first year, you're just trying to piece it together. You don't have a point guard. One of your best scorers is out 5 games in. What can improve offensively for you guys? And what maybe just first year growing pains couldn't work last year, but now you think maybe we can get it rolling?
Well, one is taking better care of the ball. We had a stretch there where we were just awful with the basketball, and then I want to shoot a higher percentage both from the 3-point line and from 2. And my last year at Wright State, we led the country in field goal percentage at 53%. And so we're not running gun. We throw it in a lot. We try to get to the free throw line a lot. I think that's where your highest percentage is. That's proven. If you could get to the free throw line every time, then you shoot 70%. That's like shooting 70% from the floor. So I'm trying to figure out ways to do that. And you don't do that by just chucking threes. I think we weren't a great shooting team last year, but we didn't shoot a terrible percentage. But I would like us to shoot 40 from 3 as a team. And those are high goals, but I think if you take the right ones, you can do it. And so got to take better care of the ball, and I'd like to shoot a higher percentage.
Of all the portal news in, out, and so on, I don't know that there's going to be 5 more impactful portal additions this year than what you got from Isaiah Stafford coming over from Valpo. Didn't play last year, but has shown in this league he is a very competent scorer. 17 a game 2 years ago. What are you most excited about with Isaiah coming to Carbondale?
Mostly just his experience and his age, and when you talk to him, it's obviously you're not talking to a high school kid. You're talking to somebody that's been in college and been around and understands the league. He is. I think in order to win now, because so many people are focused on it, you probably need to be older because it's hard to keep kids in your system. And so if you can't keep them in your system, you better find ones that are older. And we were able to do that with him for sure. But yeah, I really enjoyed him just because of his maturity.
March 31st, promoted Steve Hawkins to associate head coach. Why was that move important for you?
Well, that was simple. And he was in all respects. He just didn't have the name, and I wanted to make sure that we did that. And because I lean on him pretty heavily, and he does a lot. Going into this year, I was running the defense. We were terrible. I knew we needed to make some changes. And so, I turned that over to him, and he did a much better job of it than I was doing, and brought some different ideas. And so I lean on him. I trust him. And he does a great job with the communication with the players.
Last 2 questions. I'm going to anoint you the czar of college basketball for the day. You get to change one rule, any rule you want. What are you going to change?
So are you talking about on the floor or off the floor?
Anything you want. You're the czar, man. You're in charge of everything. So,
well, that's a good question, but I think this stuff's not going to change until the high majors are unhappy about it, and I think that they are, and so I think they're going to push for changes. But even if we could just get a cap on the NIL. But in order to do that, there's going to have to be several things that happen, and probably even the student athletes are going to have to unionize in order for those kind of things to happen. But I think that's where we're headed. If you look at any professional sports, if you had free agency every year and no cap, can you imagine? I mean, as much as these people are making, they'd be making more. Yeah. And there's only so much money. And so I think that needs to get figured out so that things can get balanced out a little bit. Otherwise, we're headed toward, just a few teams every year that are going to be the same teams. And, I don't think that's fun for anybody.
Last question. 591 wins. What's 600 going to mean for you when you get there?
I don't know. 500 meant a lot. That's hard to get to. I say this all the time. I mean, I haven't made a basket in any of those wins. What I've done well is hire good assistants. I've had great assistants, and we've recruited good players. And I'm a good coach when we have good players, and I'm not when we don't. And so I've just been fortunate enough to coach a lot of good players, and really it just makes me think about those guys and how grateful I am for them.
Scott Nagy, head coach of the Southern Illinois Salukis. Thank you so much for the time today. Enjoy whatever fleeting moments of peace and quiet you get before summer workouts are rolling. You get to be back in the practice gym soon. I know you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, we are for sure.
All right, Coach. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There is Scott Nagy. As I'm telling you, they were such an interesting team from that 0-5, looked absolutely dead in the water, just dead in the water. And they got 2 games with Missouri State, won both of them, and it just felt like they got right in a way, and sure, you could write it off. That's like, oh, it's Missouri State. They're the 12th team, whatever. But then they just kept winning, and to win 7 out of 9, got all the way back to 7-7 in the conference. And you thought this is going to be a tough out for somebody. And as he said, sort of limped down the stretch, beat Indiana State, I believe it was, at the buzzer in the 8-9 game in St. Louis. And then, of course, just ran into Drake. And, Drake can make life tough on everybody last season. But certainly year 2, a guy with as much experience as Coach Nagy has, have to expect there to be. And they've lost some dudes, most certainly. Kennard Davis being gone, Ali Diba being gone. But they've got some pieces coming back, and I really do believe that Isaiah Stafford pickup from Valpo, if he is as healthy as he can be, I think that's got a chance to be as impactful of a transfer portal addition as we see this upcoming season in the Missouri Valley Conference. All right, we've got a couple other news and notes to get to in terms of player additions. Indiana State continues to stockpile talent as they have gotten a commitment from J.C. Allen, who has played at the University of Northwestern Ohio in Lima, Ohio. She's got 2 years left, played 1 year at a junior college, sat out for 1 year at the University of Northwestern Ohio, played last year, 5'9" forward out of Richmond, Indiana. So at least coming back into the home state. Terre Haute, of course, far west. Richmond is far east, but back in the state. She averaged 14 points, 9 rebounds a game last year. And again, she will have 2 years of eligibility remaining. Courtney Boyd continues to fill out her staff at Valparaiso, as she has hired Jasmine Hackett as an assistant coach. Hackett comes from Northern Illinois, spent last season there. There was a coaching change there, and so Hackett has found a landing spot at Valpo. And then a young lady that is very familiar with Coach Boyd, and Skylar Culbertson, hired as the special assistant to the head coach. She played for Boyd at Clark University, where they won an NAIA national championship together the last 2 years. After her playing days were done, she went to Quincy, Division II Quincy, with Boyd, was her grad assistant for 2 years, and now she heads to Valpo as the special assistant to the head coach. And finally this morning, old friend alert, it is Jefferson De La Cruz Monegro, who played at Valparaiso last year. He's 2 years at Western Michigan, 1 year at Valpo, and now he is transferring to Cal State Fullerton. He was a very important piece to Valpo last year, started 32 out of their 34 games. 10 points, 3 rebounds, an assist and a half a game, 38% from the field, 6'4" guard. And, as guys wind down their careers, I can never fault somebody for trying to better their college experience. And when you get a commitment graphic with palm trees, I feel like your college experience has improved, at least off the floor. So the on the court stuff, that will all work itself out. But I think in the end, if you find yourself in a place with palm trees, worse places to spend your final year of college before you have to go get out into the workforce with the rest of us. All right, that does it for today's edition of Morning in the Valley. Thanks to Southern Illinois head coach Scott Nagy for being with us. Coming up on Friday morning, we will talk with Rocco Miller, bracketeer.org, one of the really good bracketologists out there. He's also very involved in scheduling and helping place teams in multi-team events and so on. And that is now a challenge, certainly for mid-major teams, certainly teams in the Missouri Valley Conference. So we're going to pick Rocco's brain about sort of the state of college basketball right now, and certainly the scheduling challenges that the Valley is having to try to overcome as they try to climb back into that multi-bid league world that they are certainly trying to do, but it's avoided us here for the last 4 years. So what needs to be done? And he was one that believed Drake was in last year. If they didn't win on Sunday in St. Louis, I'm still not totally sold on it, but we'll pick Rocco's brain about that and what the Valley can do moving forward to take a little of the sweat off Selection Sunday for that second team and beyond. Let's not just limit to. Let's aim high. But we'll talk with Rocco coming up on Friday. As always, during the offseason, we'll be here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 a.m. X, Facebook, YouTube. If you can do me a favor, head on over to YouTube, search Morning in the Valley, subscribe to that page there, like it, share it, all of it. Get all of it out to your Valley-loving friends as we continue to grow this program. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks to Scott Nagy for being with us today. We'll talk to Rocco Miller on Friday. We'll see you on Friday right here on Morning in the Valley.